history, certainly in my lifetime. I want to touch on that and some other major stories with Sara Gonzalez. Sara, thank you so much for joining me again.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm happy to join you at such a momentous time. Not that there's anything to talk about, right, Stephen?
Yeah, absolutely. There's almost too much. I had another YouTuber say to me, "You ever run out of things to talk about?" And I was like, "Dude, no. Like every day, I'm trying to figure out what my audience would benefit from because it's like drinking out of a fire hose. There's so much information being put out." Wanted to just let everybody know that you also have a YouTube channel just like myself. You have a show, Unfiltered, and I'll put a link to that down below. What are your thoughts so far on this monumentous election? From what I'm reading, a lot of pollsters, especially the mainstream media, they seem to be a little caught off guard with how much early election results are coming in favor of Donald Trump. And how many Republicans are saying, okay, if you can't beat them, join them. Let's just overwhelm the system with early votes. What are your thoughts thus far?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's very clear that the Democrats are constantly underestimating conservatives and their willingness to show up when they have to. We all saw what happened in 2020. And as much as, the YouTube overlords and Facebook and all of these outlets like to put a little fact check in the bottom here whenever you talk about the 2020 election, I will at least say this, because this is your YouTube channel and I want to be respectful of that. They themselves informed us in Time magazine shortly after the results of the 2020 election that they worked with a cabal of elitists to fortify the election. So they, of course, their words, not mine, make of that what you will. And so I think we watched this happen in broad daylight. And not only did we watch that happen, but we are watching what has happened in just 3.5 short years. I mean, this has been a devastating 3.5 years when you look at the open border, when you look at all of these. And so I think Americans are sitting around, they saw what just happened in 2020. They're watching the devastation that's taken place in only 3.5 short years. And they're going, okay, there's no way you're going to do this to us again. And so that's why you're seeing all of these conservatives, all of these Americans, because it's not just conservatives anymore, Stephen. It's independents. It's old school Democrats who are so tired of all of these radical policies. And they're saying, you're not going to cancel my voice out again. I'm going to show up. I'm going to early vote. And the Democrats were not prepared for that.
Yeah. Even my wife and I were like, okay, we're voting early. Like, we just want to make sure that nothing on election day gets in the way of us casting our vote. You've probably seen this, but over the last 3.5 years, one of the stories that has caught me off guard, and I'm seeing it over and over again because it's coming from different states, but just how many states are battling with Democrat lawsuits of trying to keep people on voter rolls. Like dead people on voter rolls, people that have moved out of the state on voter rolls, illegal immigrants on voter rolls. And it's only one side that is fighting for this. But do you see over the last 3.5 years, have you seen that over and over again, just like all these lawsuits to keep these voter rolls bloated?
Oh, yeah, 100%. And I do want to also mention, I mean, you have you're talking about Democrats, and that's true. But what you also have is the Federal Department of Justice suing states for removing non-citizens from their voter rolls. You have the DOJ suing the state of Alabama saying you can't take these people off of your voter rolls because that's somehow voter suppression, which, well, if they weren't supposed to vote in the first place, I don't think we need to worry about voter suppression. So you have the entire arm of the federal government waging war with these particular states for simply trying to remove people who are ineligible to vote. And here's the really, really sinister part of this. I did a documentary over in the state of Michigan about just the nasty things that were going on there with their election integrity, or lack thereof, I should say. And it was really shocking to see how bad it's gotten, but it's all intentional. And you mentioned that it's all one way. You're right. It is all one way because George Soros has gotten involved in these lesser known elections with these lesser known positions, such as the Secretary of State. And he has started a Secretary of State project where he is going in and he's funding these candidates. People are not paying attention because who knows who their Secretary of State is, generally speaking. And so these George Soros installed Secretaries of State are going in and they are working around the clock to actually make our elections less secure. I mean, that's how sinister it's gotten. And so you have states like Michigan with Jocelyn Benson, and you have these, Colorado is another one. And so you have these secretaries of state in Colorado. She's trying to remove Donald Trump from the ballot. She's leaking passwords for, some of their voting machines on their website. In Michigan, you've got Jocelyn Benson that's actually refusing to remove dead people, as you mentioned. There's like 25,000 dead people in the state of Michigan that they know are on the voter rolls right now. And Jocelyn Benson refuses to remove them. She's being sued over it, and she still refuses to remove them before this election. So they are working in such a sinister way in order to make our elections less secure, so that they can, of course, figure out how many they're down by and, come up with that number, if you will. I mean, it's really sinister stuff that they are doing with all of this election integrity and allowing non-citizens, allowing people who are ineligible to remain on the voter rolls. And as you mentioned, it cannot be overstated. This only goes one way, and that should tell you everything that you need to know about their intentions.
Yeah. I was, thank you for that. I appreciate that. I was shocked when I read that Biden's Department of Justice was going after the governor of Virginia for removing names they 100% know shouldn't be on the voter roll. Like, not like, maybe 50-50, like 100% shouldn't be. You have Merrick Garland using taxpayer money to sue Virginia and the governor of Virginia to put those people that we know shouldn't be back on the voter. Like, why? It's not even worth the stamp of mailing them a ballot. And now they're going to spend millions of dollars of taxpayer money because this election may come down to 2,500 people in a state, right? Like, up in Pennsylvania, right? They just had to sue because they find out 2,500 fake ballots, fake signatures comes in. Well, based off the last election, that's like 10 to 20% of the votes needed to flip it in Joe Biden's direction in the state of Pennsylvania. We go to bed with Donald Trump up 700,000 votes, and by morning, Joe Biden is crowned president of the United States. So these kind of shenanigans, the American people need to be aware they're going on. And you're talking like people with deep pockets in the Democrat Party suing to keep this corruption alive. But then, as you correctly pointed out, you even have Biden's Justice Department suing to keep this illegal garbage alive.
Yeah, I mean, well, so I watched this clip I didn't realize this until this clip I saw on Twitter. So maybe you don't know this, I'm not sure, but the Washington Post actually has some sort of a video component to their subscription. Like they're creating video content for their subscribers. And so I just watched these two blowhards on the Washington Post video stream, whatever, talking with Hugh Hewitt, who is, of course, a conservative radio host. And the two Washington Post blowhards were talking about how Donald Trump was already setting the stage to contest the results of the election. He's already setting the stage to contest, because look at what they're doing in Pennsylvania. They're complaining about Pennsylvania. They're complaining about Virginia. And Hugh Hewitt had to stop them and eventually stormed off. He had to stop them and say, guys, you have to mention within this conversation that they're suing and they're winning because these are legitimate issues going on in these places. You can't let that remain unsaid. They're suing and they're winning because these Pennsylvania, Virginia, all of these places, it's like there are actually very serious issues going on in these places, and it could come down to a handful of votes. So maybe you should add that into the conversation, that he's not setting the stage for contesting an election. There are things happening right before our very eyes that they're suing and winning over because they're correct in pointing this out and challenging it. I mean, it's just crazy to me. They are already gaslighting us into, if you lose, you may not question the election results. And by the way, you may not question the fact that Pennsylvania they're closing their lines early, right? That's against the law, and they won. They don't want you to talk about how what's going on in Virginia, as you mentioned. They don't want you to talk about that. So they're going to already gaslight you before the election has already been called, that you may not question any of these funny things that are going on.
Yeah. One thing that gives me a little bit more hope, obviously.
Please tell me.
I'm seeing this just like you are, but Last election cycle, Ronna McDaniels, the niece of Mitt Romney, she wanted to spend no money on election integrity and investigating whether there was fraud or free and fair elections, but she sure wanted to raise money on complaining about it. Right. Now you have Laura Trump in, they're saying, oh, this is nepotism. This is Trump trying to build an empire of the Trump family dynasty. But she is got all of these lawyers. They're taking this very serious. I think we're going to see more election lawsuits between November 6th and the middle of January than we've ever seen before, because this time they are going to legally try to contest everything, because Ronna McDaniels didn't have the heart and the courage to do it last time. Today's economic environment is still really stressful for a lot of us, but with the Fed finally dropping rates, there is no better time than now to put you and your family in a better financial position. If you're a homeowner, American Financing is helping thousands of families just like you who have been putting everyday expenses on credit cards get out from underneath the debt by tapping into their home's equity. American Financing is saving their borrowers over $800 a month on average. $800 a month is like $10,000. Now, it costs absolutely nothing to find out how much you can save. They are closing some in as little as 10 days. And if you start today, you may not have to make the next 2 mortgage payments. There is no better time than now to turn your situation around. I want you to reach out to my friends at American Financing. Call 888-686-8030. That's 888-686-8030. Or visit americanfinancing.net/Gardner. All right, let's get back to this interview.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. That is something that I try to remind people is, listen, could we have used Laura Trump 3 years earlier? Yes. But the point is, she's here now and she's totally transformed the RNC so that now we are proactive. Now we're on offense rather than Ronna Romney McDaniel walking around raising money and spending that money on limousines, on flowers. Did you see the report before she left? Her position is all this money spent, millions of dollars spent on all of these lavish, posh, ways of life for her. Meanwhile, she doesn't want to spend money on things that Republicans actually care about. And so for a long time, I was like, you get the text messages and the phone calls. Do you want to donate to the RNC? And I was like, absolutely not. But when you're spending my money on something like making sure that our elections are secure, you can bet that I want to donate to something like that, because I know that it's going to go to, of course, making sure that my vote counts. And so the way that Laura Trump has transformed the RNC, I think, has just been instrumental. And I love seeing them come out on the offense this time.
Yeah, I agree. You've probably been watching this, but the New York Times is doing this pressure campaign on YouTube through Media Matters. They're trying to get YouTube to boot or demonetize conservative voices like yours, like mine, Tucker Carlson, Ben Shapiro, Tim Pool, Glenn Beck, others. This is like, they complain about democracy is being threatened, right? Democracy dies in the dark, right? And then secretly behind the scenes, they're literally doing this like multi-million-dollar coordinated effort of silencing and ruining the income streams of hundreds of conservative platforms and voices like yours and mine. What are your thoughts on that? I was like blown away when I started reading this story.
Yeah, honestly, I guess I'm just so cynical when it comes to platforms like the New York Times and the Washington Post that I was just like, of course they're using Media Matters as their source of information. Of course they're using a very clearly biased, slanted left, all the way left, right? Organization to cite as well. Media Matters did a report, and this is what their report said. It's just disgusting. But at the heart of it, it really gets to the issue with the left, which is they don't believe any of what they espouse. They do not believe a word of what they are claiming that they care about. They don't care about election misinformation. They don't care about what they call disinformation. They don't care about democracy, even though we don't have one. They don't care about any of those things that they claim they care about. And it's reflected in their actions. I mean, you have these people who are, I equate them to like the tattletales in the kindergarten class, right? Teacher, Ben Shapiro is spreading misinformation. Can you please make him stop? And then they turn around and what do? They print headlines like Donald Trump calls for the execution of Liz Cheney, which of course he didn't do, right? I mean, they are the purveyors of mis and disinformation, and they claim that they really care about it. It's just disgusting. You see Jimmy Kimmel going on and making a joke that Republicans vote, what did he say? Republicans vote Wednesday and Democrats vote Tuesday or whatever he said, which is a joke. Well, there's actually a conservative that did prison time over the same type of joke. And so you have this double set of standards going on where they can claim that they care about all of these things while they are, of course, the people who are committing these actions the most. And of course, whenever something like that, a joke per se, happens with us or they get caught doing something, they're never in the wrong. I mean, it's just an impossible standard to live by because they set the rules for us and they don't intend to ever live by them.
Yeah. I want to stick with that Liz Cheney story. I wonder if this is like, you know, the fake story of very fine people down in Charlottesville. They've tried to use that in both debates against Trump. They've run media campaigns against it. Of course, they take out the clip that makes him look bad, and then the part where he says, "I'm not talking about those crazy neo-Nazis," But I just wonder, like, are they setting him up where, here's Liz Cheney who openly and publicly has said how much she hates Donald Trump, that he is the opposite of the Bush administration, that she tried to have him impeached. She got herself appointed to the J6 committee. They openly lied. They intimidated witnesses. They manipulated witnesses. They then destroyed the very evidence to get Donald Trump so that he couldn't use it to defend himself. And then when he says, she's a war hawk, why doesn't she take up a rifle and see what it's like to be in battle, have 9 guns pointed at her? Now they're saying, Donald Trump calls for her to be executed on a firing squad line. Like, is this the next set? Is this the next lie in case he wins? Or is this just a last minute Hail Mary to try to discredit him before 100 million more Americans vote?
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought up the J6 committee. I mean, it is my opinion that Liz Cheney belongs in prison for the fraud and just the misrepresentations and the destruction of evidence, all just to wage war against her political opposition. And I realize that she calls herself a Republican, but she's not. And so Liz Cheney is just a disgusting human being. I do think that this is just a last attempt, a Hail Mary. They've got their old bag of tricks. They grab it, they reach into it, they grab onto whatever they can, and they're like, we're just going to throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and see what sticks. You saw that with their, the Nazi comment. Tim Walz is calling all of us Nazis. I mean, they are really, really trying. They misrepresented Donald Trump the other day on something else that he had said about women. I mean, they are really trying their best to make this guy look like the evil dictator that they have been trying to convince Americans for the last, 8 years that he is. The problem is we already see what Donald Trump was like as president. Right. And so they're trying to convince all of these people that, just wait until he gets into office and he's going to become an evil dictator. Well, he didn't the last time. So I just think that they're reaching. They have overplayed their hand and they're reaching, they're stretching. This is one last desperate attempt to try to paint Donald Trump as all of the mean things that they have been claiming that he is, and hope that there are enough, hope that there are enough dumb Americans who actually believe it rather than seeing the comments for themselves.
Yeah. I like how they regularly quote Michelle Obama. When they go low, we go high, right? But then, like, they make up stories. They fabricate this Russian hoax. They demonize all of us as garbage, deplorable Nazis, led by a cult leader named Donald Adolf Hitler Trump. And then they wonder why there's division. You know, Obama says, I don't know how it got so out of control. Because of you, dude. Like, you are part of the problem. You are not going high when we go low. You are going low and calling it high. Like, it's just, they just lie. It's the opposite. Whatever they say we're doing, they are the ones doing it.
Yeah, you're totally right. I mean, I call them the party of projection. And that's what I say all the time. Not only are they doing it, they're also 20 steps ahead of where we're at. And so, you know, they're accusing us of all sorts of things. And I basically say anything that they ever accuse us of, you can guarantee they are actually doing, right? Like, you could guarantee they are either in the middle of doing or already have intentions of doing it. And with the left, I like to say that they, you know, as much as they say, when they go low, we go high, actually, their real motto is what Eric Holder said, which was, when they go low, we go lower. And what did he say? We punch them. That's what he said. I mean, it's like, well, that's actually the true representation of the Democrat Party. That's why we've seen this increase in violent rhetoric from Maxine Waters, from Nancy Pelosi, from all of these people who are telling Democrats, take to the streets. They're telling Democrats, get up in faces of Trump supporters. They've been telling Democrats this for years and years and years, while saying, we're the party of unity. We're the party of unity. If you want unity, I speak for all Americans. The problem is they have way too much of a track record for us to actually believe that. I mean, we're talking about years now of calling us all sorts of names while claiming they don't know why we got so divided. It's just, it's so hard to even comprehend at this point.
Yeah. I mentioned this offline, but I love your hat.
Thank you.
As you move your head, is there a little bit of sparkle or is it just catching the light of the thread?
Well, it's actually, so no, there's no sparkle, but I do have some sparkles in my hair. So it might be just catching the light of my.
Okay, maybe that's what I'm seeing. Do you remember last election cycle? If people were wearing that red and white "Make America Great" hat, I mean, they were harassed. Some of them, they were beat up. Their hat was knocked off. It got to the point where I don't want to say people were ashamed, but they were extremely cautious about their support of Donald Trump. Now, I think people are so fed up. They're so tired of being lied to, demonized, kicked, spit upon, that now, I mean, I've never seen so much Donald Trump, MAGA, Make America Great, American flag. I've never seen more in my entire life. Have you noticed that as well?
100% yes. And it was almost like after he was, of course, there were 2 assassination attempts on his life. It's like there was an energy change just in the air. You could feel it. And I can just recall the first time that when he was actually shot in the head, I was looking at my husband and I was about to go to the store. And I said, I'm never taking this hat off again. I'm wearing a MAGA hat every single place that I go. Every time they try to kill him, another yard sign goes up in my yard. And we have 2 Donald Trump yard signs in my yard because everyone is so sick of being demonized to the point where they are trying to take his life. The left has convinced their people that he is literally Hitler. And if you believe that someone is literally Hitler, you think that it's your duty to wipe them off the face of the planet. You think, as you saw with the second attempt, that this guy had written a book about how it would be good for humanity. It would be better for the world if Donald Trump was not in it. I mean, these are mentally deranged, sick people. And so you can only be backed up against the wall for so long before you finally say, no, you know what? I'm tired of this. I'm not going to let you demonize me anymore. I'm not going to let you keep shooting at my president any longer. I'm not going to let you try to keep convincing me that you're the good guys when you are trying to imprison and kill your political opponent. I'm just done. I'm wearing this hat everywhere I go. I don't care what you think about it. I really feel like that is the average, not just even conservative, like I said before, but I mean, you've got independents who are looking at this going, no, you know what? I support this man because you're trying to kill him and that's just a bridge too far. And so I think there's been a shift in people just saying, screw you guys. We're sick of it and we're going to show our support and we just don't really care what you think about it. And there's just a lot of power in not caring anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. No, what a weird election cycle where one side is saying, I can't believe he keeps getting shot at. while at the same time literally comparing him to one of the most evil people that has ever lived, right? Like, man, I can't believe they shot at Hitler, Trump. It's just such a bizarre time to live through. I consider you to be strong, very intelligent. What are your thoughts on Mark Cuban basically dissing Republican women, saying there are no strong or intelligent women that support Donald Trump?
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I had no idea until just yesterday when I heard from Mark Cuban that I am apparently weak and stupid. But this is the type of rhetoric, again, that you hear from the Democrat Party. They claim that the Republicans are the ones who hate women. They claim that they're gonna take us back to the Handmaid's Tale if Republicans get in charge. That remember the old saying, the Republicans have a war on women. I mean, they have spent a good number of years trying to convince women that Republicans are the ones that hate them. And then sometimes they say the quiet parts out loud, Stephen. And that's, of course, what happened with Mark Cuban, who thinks that I am weak and stupid because I support Donald Trump. It's the same thing with them with race as well. They say that Republicans are racist. They say that Republicans are sexist. But let me tell you, I have had 0 Republicans this election cycle tell me that I should go home to Mexico, that I'm going to get deported if Donald Trump gets elected because my last name is Gonzalez. And I guess they can't fathom someone with the last name Gonzalez just being an American citizen. I mean, these are people who feel this way about us. And every once in a while, we get just a little glimmer of what they're actually thinking, a little oopsies, right? And what they're actually thinking. Because quickly Mark Cuban recanted and was like, oh, it just came out wrong. That's not what I was trying to say. No, it was, because it's what you think. And so it's nice to have them just accidentally say these quiet parts out loud every once in a while to remind you, these are the people who are actually sexist. These are the people who are actually racist. And, I'm sure he's kicking himself for that one. But I'm just glad that he accidentally told the truth on what he really thinks.
Yeah, I read today. I'm still trying to verify this source, but I guess the Harris administration had asked him to stop going on TV on her behalf. We'll see if that happens. But it seems like everywhere he goes, he's been on these money talk shows and it's like he just continues to drag her down. And so I guess this morning they were like, "Hey, listen, we're a couple days out. Just be quiet. Just don't go sit with Maya, who we've also asked to shut her mouth. You're my sister, and I love you, but just be quiet. Don't talk." Final question. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
Biden and Harris have fueled this illegal immigration situation, an invasion. I'm certain that a lot of the people that have come across the border are good people, but they're not supposed to be here. Mm-hmm. And never have we funded an invasion of our country with our own money. It's not where I want my tax dollars going. If someone said to me, "Hey, listen, we need you to pay a little more taxes because seniors are not able to keep up with this inflation." Okay, great. I understand that. But hey, a 23-year-old male who was recently released from Venezuelan prison, we're going to pay for their housing, 3 meals a day, $10,000 a month in food stamps, posh hotels. I'm just not for that. How do you think they go about this? Because I have to imagine 15 million people are not just going to say, "Oh, okay, after risking my life and putting up my family's fortune to get here, I'm just going to leave." Do you, everyone talks about this potential civil war, but I'm just wondering, Trump gets in and says, "I'm cutting off the taxpayer money to illegal immigrants." What do you think happens there?
Well, I mean, I think, first of all, with the idea of mass deportations, which Donald Trump has said that he would do, I like that you point out the human side of things, which is, I'm sure that there are people who, by very nature of crossing into our country, are actually criminals, but not necessarily bad people. And I do think that is important to recognize. But it is also important to know that if you are a leader of this country and you are charged with keeping Americans safe, you cannot let feelings get in the way of facts. And the fact of the matter is, we cannot sustain ourselves as a country with all of this, these handouts that we are giving to these illegals. We cannot sustain ourselves with the amount that we're spending on schools. We cannot sustain the amount that we're spending on housing, on food, on the EBT cards that they're getting. And so we have to have a leader who is in charge of things, who is looking at these numbers and saying, we can't do this. We have to cut it off. We have to close the border, and we have to figure out a humane way of getting these people back to where they came from. And so it's not going to be easy. The optics are not going to be great, but it's gotten so bad. I will say this, Stephen, it's gotten so bad that, I mean, some of the polls that I was seeing the last time I looked, which wasn't that long ago, on people who support mass deportations in this country is like 80%. Overwhelmingly, people have said, we have to get these people out of here, not because I don't have compassion. I have compassion for people who live in bad circumstances. I have compassion for people who were not born in this country. I love America. I think America still, we're like on the precipice, but I think we are still, for right now, the greatest country that the world has ever seen. And I feel bad for people who were not actually born here. But you got to think longer than that. You got to think more critically than that. And so the fact of the matter is, the majority of Americans support mass deportations because we are all seeing the ramifications of allowing people in an open border. And I just think that once you cut off all of the funding, they don't have a place to live. I mean, it will become a much difficult place for them. And some of these cases, you may not even need to deport them. They may actually self-deport because they're not being given all of these handouts anymore. So I do think that there is a lot to what you're saying, that some of this may come in the form of self-deportation. But the fact of the matter stands that, unfortunately, this is a crisis of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's making. And if Donald Trump has to be the bad guy, if Donald Trump has to be the firm one that comes in and says it's not pretty, but it has to happen for this country's sovereignty and for the security and the safety of Americans, I see Americans overwhelmingly supporting that. And I want to add one thing to that, Stephen, because I know I'm like going on a diatribe here, but I do think that one important component to Americans now, you've got overwhelming support for mass deportations, has been Governor Abbott and people, Governor DeSantis, leaders who have said, you know what, we're going to ship them to your neck of the woods and you see how you like it. Because for as much as you want to claim that you're a sanctuary city, you're in the Midwest, Chicago, right? Like, you don't know what it's like to have an influx of illegals come into your city and see how you handle it. And so, you've got this dumping of Haitian migrants into really tiny towns that can't sustain it. And so I think that really has been a tide turner in Americans understanding we're all border towns now. So we all see the ramifications and the effects of illegal immigration, and it has to stop. And that is one of the reasons I think this election is just so important. This could be country changing stuff if we allow this to continue.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping it's country changing for the better. But I completely agree. I think if there was an announcement, we are cutting off hotels, food, all of the things that carrot that dangles, we're removing the carrot. I think a lot of people will say, I got to figure out how to get back home. Right. Or even if they said, we're gonna just take you, we'll pay, but we're sending you out, because the cost of doing that is cheaper than letting you live off the American taxpayer for 12 more months or 60 more months or 84 months, whatever that number ends up being. And I do think a lot of people will self-select and go home. I think the gangs are going to be the ones that they really struggle to get out, because if money gets cut off, they're going to lean into criminal activity and taking over more. It could get really ugly, but that's why we have a National Guard, is for when there are big emergencies like that. Sara, I want to thank you for coming on and all that you do. You have a great voice. I want people to go follow you on YouTube. Where can they follow you? What can I point them towards?
Yeah, sure. You can follow me. It's YouTube. It's Sara Gonzalez Unfiltered. So youtube.com/@Sara Gonzalez Unfiltered. They can watch my show Monday through Friday. We've got Sara Gonzalez Unfiltered airing. And follow me on the platform formerly known as Twitter. Sorry, it's hard for me to still call it X. It just doesn't sound right. So I'm on there as well. You can find me all over social media, Sara Gonzalez TX.
My wife's like, you got to quit calling it Twitter. It's officially become X. And I'm like,
I can't
no,
stop.
I'm a rebel. You can't control my speech.
That's the whole point of this platform.
Exactly, right? Even I think Elon did a poll. Should I change it back to Twitter? And the majority were like, yeah, it's just easier to say. So, hey, have a great weekend. I'm going to put those direct links so people can find you easily. I appreciate you. Have a great rest of your day.